Dude, have you ever pulled like a Michael Keaton out of Mr. Mom?
Yeah,
You know,
100%.
like when you've got workers at your house.
220, 221, whatever it
Right,
takes.
right, right.
Yeah. Well, no. I know you have though, like
Well,
getting
I
in the
did it
grill of a
today.
plumber or
I
the
did,
TV guy.
I did it today because the AC went out of my house, right? And so it's hot as you know what.
So in other words, it was so hot you were sweating like Paris Hilton taking the SATs. That type of sweat.
Well done. Well done. So finally, these guys show up, and I'm of the belief that people will charge you whatever they think you can pay, right? And so I also am of the belief that if you act like you know halfway about what they're doing, they can't. So you pull the Michael Keaton. I didn't walk down with a chainsaw as I had guys like in my foyer looking to do a little work, but I immediately started talking about coils and condensers. And I use so many mixed metaphors that I think they're probably going to charge me 2 times as much.
And you know what? And quite frankly, they should. Because if you were trying to pull that routine on them, it's within their right to absolutely charge you top dollar. At least you said foyer and not foyer, because if you pulled a foyer on them, it would have been a 2x.
No question, no question. And speaking of charging, obviously, apparently, some guys were charging the mound last night.
Well,
in the Dodgers Stros game, and I think this is first of all, I love what went on there, and this is ultimately a would you rather, because there's two guys. If I mention to people that follow baseball, and I think even remotely, there's two stories, and I mentioned either Joe Kelly or Nick Markakis. Would you rather? Who pulled the cooler move?
Joe Kelly. I mean,
Yeah.
Joe, and people are going to say you're a jerk for saying that, and maybe I am, but look, the Astros, and I know, they 100% put themselves in this position, and they had it coming to him. He didn't hit Bregman. It was a 3-0 count. It was 3 feet away, clearly above his head and behind him, which
By
is
the way,
dangerous
guys,
in and of
hold on.
itself.
Before you go any further, did the Yankees employ any of these tactics?
In what tactics? The Astros tactics or the Joe Kelly throwing at people?
Especially in the in the Beltran era, and also there's anyway. Keep going, but you know that there's a lot of inconsistency to your tirade here. Keep going. Come on.
There's no inconsistency. There's zero inconsistency. The Stros had it coming. He threw behind the guy. He strikes out Correa. He says something he probably shouldn't have said. And by the way, I will say, you know who the fact that Bregman just sort of didn't even look at him, walk to first base, good for him, because he knew it was coming.
Yes.
He absolutely. And Dusty Baker afterwards, you know what, Dusty? Quiet down on this one, because you know and I know you played in an era where guys were getting drilled left and right. So let's just leave it at that.
Speaking of a lot of just pathetic stuff that's going on, these testimonies on the Hill today around the big four in Techland are really kind of ridiculous in terms of getting at the antitrust issues and the soapbox that each side of the aisle who seemingly appear first of all, the technology awareness of these folks is the Sony Betamax. It's probably still sitting in their closet. Would you rather tomorrow? It's earnings day. We did 2 last night. The other 2 biggies, Facebook or Google. You're up.
If I had to pick between the two, I think Google actually to me is probably the safer of the 2 bets. Look, Facebook could crush it tomorrow. We've seen it before. Stock's up 7%, and everybody's talking about, you know what, advertisers didn't flee. Nobody left the platform. I can see it and I can hear it. But if you're looking for the safer of the 2, I think it comes in the form of Google, which out of the big 4 that we've talked about, I think is the most valuation-wise is the most reasonable out of all of them. So given the choice of would you rather, it would be Joe Kelly and Google.
I hate when we line up fully, although we're friends and we don't have to be combative. So, I mean, I'm a Joe Kelly Google guy too. In fact, I'm long Google. I love it on valuation because I think it's the best growth for the money. It's a 23 to 28 times, depending on how you're looking at their numbers, multiple, where I think their businesses, especially as they relate to not just their core search, which has shown to be not only resilient, but even upticked. And this may be at the heart of what's going on in DC, but YouTube is turning into a juggernaut in terms of media. So I like Google. I think ultimately it's a case where Mr. Pichai has come a long way also in slowly bringing both the transparency and I think really some of the corporate governance issues that were not necessarily a problem under under Schmidt and Co. But I think this is a case where really understanding where the business is and understanding where you can see into the business and the Google parts and the investments that have really just been lottery tickets in the past. The question for me ultimately with Facebook is I think the engagement's going to be fine. I think the DAUs and the engagement are going to be fine. We really have no idea what's going on with the small business community and the SMBs as it relates to really those who are the predominant advertisers on their platform. But to say that these these folks are going to be advertising or not, I think they have no choice than to advertise on Facebook. So I think that's where we are.
The existential risk, in my opinion, just as an opinion, you saw what happened to energy stocks. You saw what happened to big cap energy names falling under the auspices of this new wave of ESG investing, which, by the way, is not going away anytime soon. So if for some reason, and I'm not suggesting it's going to happen.
Do you think that's garbage?
I don't think it's whether it doesn't. My opinion doesn't matter. It's here and it's not going away.
Very tactful.
I mentioned well, it's not. But again, whether I think it's garbage or not doesn't really matter. I know that it's not going away anytime soon. And Facebook, I think, is in 221 different ETFs, 170 of which Facebook is one of their top 15 holdings.
Right.
If for whatever reason somebody comes out and says, we're taking a critical look at Facebook on the whole ESG front, that could be, and I'll use the word, that could be catastrophic to the shares. But that's something you have to think about, but that's not tomorrow's story.
The key, what we've seen going into these hearings and coming out of these hearings is that this is a lot of bluster. This started in June of 2019. And if anything, these stocks have rallied despite what's going on. Yeah. And in fact, possibly because of it, because it's highlighted just the cash flow machines, the balance sheets in an uncertain time, and the dominance they have over our lives. And in fact, I got to switch on my iPhone at some point and Google find what time the Mets are on.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You know what else is extraordinary? The fact that the Mets went up to Boston and have taken the first two. Hold on. Listen, I will tell you, they got the Jakeinator. What do you call him? DeGrominator or whatever.
DeGrominator. Come on, you know what we call him. We know we call him. He's the best pitcher in baseball. No, he's the best pitcher in baseball.
But he's, arguably, he's on the hill tonight. Looking to sweep the Red Sox, and I will tell you this, and I can look you in the eye and say this, I absolutely root for the Red Sox against the Mets every single time they play.
You've made this pretty clear. Are the Yanks playing again tonight?
I think they're in Baltimore. I think.
Are they playing? I mean,
don't blame. You say it as if it's their fault. It's not their fault. I mean, they didn't set the situation.
I don't know.
And real quick, by the way, in terms of Markakis, this is something to think about. You see more and more NFL guys are walking away. I think they just reported a couple hours ago that Nate Solder, the bust left tackle for the Giants, I think is sitting out this year. I saw that pop up. I haven't verified it, but point there is, these leagues are on, extraordinary thin ice. And if the NFL starts to have this wave of players saying, "See you later," that's a problem.
So, before we say "see you later," who's the first Yankee that raises his hand and says, "I'm out of here"?
Probably some relief pitcher that I can't identify right now. Maybe like a Zach Britton. How's that? I don't know. I'm not looking to pick on Zach, but there you go.
All right. Well, look, enjoy baseball if you're playing it tonight. Mets are on a roll. See you tomorrow.
Later, dude.